Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream of the recap of 2024. We will be uh, beginning shortly. Jonathan will be here in a moment, joining me uh, on this live stream. We will go through the highs and lows of 2024. We'll give you guys a couple of minutes to join us. You can say hi into the chat wherever you're watching us, whether it is on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I don't judge. And here we go. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I think every time we do one of these, I always wish I had a cool mic that was like from up here, so I could be like, "Yo, what's up, Philip?" and like use a radio voice. But I just haven't done it yet.
There's also like the punk rock stance where you have the mic from up and you have your mic really high and your guitar really low. That's the way punk rock
Yeah,
folks
yeah.
do it.
Let me do that for tech. I'll just like come back here and I'll just be swinging a microphone. And I'll be like,
Oh
"Yeah,
yeah.
think about this."
Or
Terrible.
you can go, Freddie Mercury, have your microphone on a stick. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Do a tiny stick. How are you?
we
How are you, how are you
we
doing,
should
Philip?
do a live stream on like different mic stances or
I love
something
that.
like
Yeah.
that.
We can really dial in the proper like where should the mic be? Should it be on this
Yeah,
side of the screen? Should it be on this one?
yeah.
So that's how we're starting this live stream is what it is.
Yes, that's talking about mics, the important stuff of 2024. How's your year? Tell me, like,
Oh man.
what's been going on with you this year, and how did you like this year, or you can't wait for it to finish?
Wow. Yeah. How was this year? I would say this year has been it's been really good. It's been a really good year. I definitely have learned a lot. I've had a lot of professional success, that sort of thing. For people that are just joining or are familiar, I've been at Checkly for almost 2 years now. That bet has been a really, really great bet for me because it's a solution that I believe in, right? Using playwright tested synthetic monitors, that sort of thing. But it's much more than that. It's awesome. So I've had a really great time there. I actually was just in Vietnam for 2 weeks working with some of our customers. So I got to ride scooters and eat a bunch of pho and talk about Checkly for
Nice.
2 weeks. It was awesome. Yeah. So it's been really great. And on a personal note, having a baby next year. So
Oh,
super,
congrats, man!
yeah, I'll be a dad like you next year. So that'll be cool. I'm super excited about that. So yeah, this year's been awesome. It's definitely has also had its moments where, again, maybe this is why we're doing this, right? When I think about the community and being in the software development community, it's definitely been some like nail biting, interesting times. Definitely seen some friends not have the best year, and I think being able to speak to that is really important, even if I feel like even if I've had a great year, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Philip?
I mean, there have been ups and downs this year, sort of a theme of this live stream as well. But all in all, I have to say it's been a really good year. I think I had a little bit of everything. I had time to work really really hard, or almost on edge of overworking myself. I had times where I had enough time to relax, to get back with my family, to enjoy lovely vacations we had. Um, I had a time to explore new things, explore new projects, and yeah, both professionally and personally. I think this was a really really good year, and all in all, like, to sum up everything, because there have been highs, there have been lows, but I think like it sort of evens itself out, and like the net positive was definitely there. So yeah, but I'm also like really really aware, but that I'm quite privileged to be able to say that this has been a good year, because like there has been a lot of turbulences, and we're probably are going to start off with with some of those. By the way, I see that there are some people online, so let us know, how was 2024 for you, both professionally and personally. If you are a fan of this year, or you're just like, let's get this one out of the door so we can start with 2025 hopefully with with some better outlooks. I don't know what it has been for you, but share this with us, and we'll highlight some of the top comments.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, just kind of like you said, it's been a great year. Maybe next year will be also interesting and dicey. I think your story that is actually one of my highlights, and I guess I'm giving it away a little bit for my ups, is actually something that I think is worth speaking to, right? But we'll get there. So I'm not gonna jump it. But the fact that you can say that this was a really good year, I think says a lot about maybe what I hope the reality is of the community, right?
Yeah. All right. I mean, let's, I guess, jump into it. I'm sharing a slide, best and worst of 2024, and we actually, to make it fun, we are going to be starting with the worst of 2024. And I think we kind of already opened the topic on the very first thing we want to mention, and that's tech layoffs. That's like, this is not an ordered list. This is like number one because it's just number one in the list, but it's probably very high up there for many folks. Tech layoffs have been brutal this year, and I think they were less bad than the previous year, at least according to the source that I looked into. That was the layoffs.fyi page, which sort of tracks layoffs in the tech space, and there were 150K people affected by layoffs this year. I think the year before was even worse. It was like 230K or something like that, if I recall correctly. So it wasn't as bad, but I guess we can all agree it wasn't fun in that in that regard. And I mean, I had my first personal experience with stuff like that. I mean, we both have in a way. So it's not a fun thing to experience, but also sometimes it opens doors to something better. It definitely has been like that for me. Although I loved my time at Replay, it didn't work out. But when it comes to like what came after, I had lots of time to relax. I had lots of time to review my choices, and I think I'm doing good. What's your what you already like suggested that this might be a topic of today's stream. Do you agree? Did I take one of the worst one of the downs of 2024 from you?
100%, right? So I guess for the audience, like, we both did our own 5 ups, 5 downs independently of one another. We knew that we would have some crossover, so we'll likely be sharing our screens. Philip, can you share my screen real quick? Because this was actually number 3 for me, right? My bad, wrong one. This one. Yeah, so 100%, Philip. I think that layoffs are big up there, but I frame this as labor relations, right? So to kind of give it a bigger view, right? We've not only seen these massive layoffs that are second to only the year prior, but we've also seen, right, a lot of this, AI is going to take our jobs type stuff, ghost jobs or ghost job openings from companies and employers, making it look like they're hiring so that their investors aren't worried about them. But really, it's just a way of, again, making it look like they're in a healthier state than they really are. And I actually, just to kind of give this even more context, I actually had done a talk on this in San Francisco last year a little bit, where we're actually getting to the peak of goodness, the box of goodness and the box of despair, right? So the box of goodness is the total amount of software development jobs in 2022. That was the peak amount of software development jobs ever,
Yeah.
right? It has never gotten higher than that since that point in time. So you could say software development, as far as employability, has been on a decline since then. And because we're in the bad section, we're just going to lean into it, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat any of this stuff. This is the box of despair, right? So this is peak layoffs was actually in 2023, Q1 2023.
Yeah.
This graph is a little old, so you should see actually a smaller spike in Q3 and Q4 of this present year as well.
Mhm.
But layoffs in mass, for the most part, were done last year, right? The beginning of last year. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. But yeah, Philip, do you have any thoughts here around like these the box of despair and the box
Yeah.
of goodness?
Yeah, I mean it's I saw this graph before where like the job offers are pretty much back to pre-COVID numbers. I mean the pandemic definitely sped up the uh technical, what is it called, tech transformation,
Mhm.
the LinkedIn buzzword, I forgot it. And many tech jobs were like, there were many jobs in demand, right? But we're now back to the numbers before. And what's interesting, and what this chart doesn't really show but maybe could be interesting to look at, is that we now have more developers, right? So we're back to pre-COVID numbers, but in past 4 years, since there were so many job offerings, I could imagine like there's thousands of new people joining the tech market. I mean, just like recently, I have been my brother, who's a teacher, decided like, yeah, this is not worth it. I need to get into tech. I need to get into digital marketing or something else, because this is not paying my bills. And I think this is not a unique story. In fact, I keep hearing this more and more. Um, but there are like this, so many different factors that come into it, that even when the graph goes up and down and it seems like we're back to where we were 4 years ago, we're not really back to where we were
100%.
4 years ago. And the market is kind of like more harsh. It's harder to get into tech right now, or so it seems, at least to me. And then there's another thing, and we will be definitely talking about this today. That's the AI, right?
Yep.
Which seems to also have impact. Not that AI would do the job of developers, but it seems to affect decisions that are being made on like when it comes to like companies and where they should head in upcoming years. Like I don't see AI directly taking jobs of people, but I see companies making shifts and making like, yeah, shifts to a different industry. Like, we've been this company and now we are AI company,
Yep.
and stuff like that happening, which of course affects people in tech. So yeah, that's that. Like those are just a couple of things that come to mind, but I don't want to drag this too long because there's so much that could be said about this. But maybe there is something I forgot. You can fill me in.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would hit here, right, is that like while there are all of these tech layoffs, at the same time you're reading actively about there's a skills scarcity, right? So it's like somehow there's both happening at the exact same time. And so it's interesting to see that juxtaposition constantly within our news feed every day. So I would say that labor relations and layoffs, right, are definitely one of the low points of 2024 as well. You want to do the next one?
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. So first one, we had tech layoffs. And the famous one, I had to mention this because this one happened this year. What do you know? It seems like ages ago, but yeah, CrowdStrike, the biggest cyber problem, I don't know how to call it, of 2024. Ironically, biggest cyber attack of 2024 was with the security software itself. So that's talk about irony. Yeah, if you remember, I think everyone remembers, but for those who don't, yeah, somehow over-the-air update caused millions of machines to go blue screen of death. No, you could not restart them. You could not reboot them. You would have to. They would be stuck in an endless loop. So you pretty much would have to call in your sysadmin to fix the issue and to restart. And I don't know how many millions of devices were affected, but it was airports, hospitals. It was everything. It was brutal. Probably the the biggest one. At least I remember experiencing. Yeah.
100% completely agreed here. If you share the screen, right? This was I think this is my number 5 actually.
Did you number yours? Yeah, I can show it. Yeah.
100%.
Oh, you have like title headlines. You're doing a great job with this. I just put the word on it.
So to me, like again, like CrowdStrike was a particular moment where cybersecurity became something that everyone talks about, right? It affected a ton of services. I think most famously, it was people in airports, like not only were your planes down, right, but you would see the blue screen of death. And maybe if you had never played Xbox in your life or used like a PC before, you'd never seen that terrible screen. So the fact that everyone got to figure out like what that means together, I think was huge. But as you can also see is that, there have been data breaches. And of course, this is US centric because I live in the US, but there have been data breaches and cybersecurity issues all across many different sectors, both public and private, to varying degrees of, severity. And I think cybersecurity definitely is one of the low points of this year. So while we've been spending all this time on AI and putting it into all of these systems, right, it seems like a lot of systems are very insecure. So it's kind of an interesting thing to focus on. But I would say this is also a low point. So yeah, I'm loving how much overlap we have here, Philip.
Yeah. We'll speed through this. Maybe we only need 10 points. We'll be hitting the same stuff. Exactly. I'm also thinking it also makes me think like how fragile are our systems nowadays. I've been always placing myself somewhere between development and testing, and I see like how these two worlds are sometimes in a clash. But I also see that the bigger the company and the bigger the code base is, somehow it seems like it means that the system is more fragile, more prone to one person error, and there have been like thousands of or hundreds of blog posts and videos and analysis on the CrowdStrike issue. It all seems to point to a systemic failure. Like there were checks in place, but they were bypassed. They were like ignored, and it seems like the sort of systemic problems we have in software development with like alert fatigue and rerunning pipelines and stuff like that. It just keeps happening over and over, and at this scale, it can have a pretty big impact. So yeah, that was fun.
100%. And I love the way that you actually wrap that up, right? Because there is a cohesive picture that I think is already starting to come together from these lows that I think will hopefully feed into the highs. But yeah, I love that you framed it as, hey, in software development, we literally see people mash the button to retry a test or to skip, any kind of validation at all. It's like, that actually has a cost, right? Like that actually leads to maybe some incidents like literally incidents like this. So it's wild. I love that you put that together.
I said I'm kind of sitting on both chairs, both as a developer and a tester, and I can totally understand the like putting myself into developer shoes. Like you spend, I don't know, week, maybe more, trying to create a feature. You just want to get it out of the door, and then you're like dealing with pipelines and they're failing, and you have some dumb checks and tests are falling which are unrelated to what you have done and stuff like that. And you just like, in an ideal world, you want to optimize for like shipping fast, but sometimes you over optimize, or maybe you just like do a hand wave and just like, yeah, good, ship it. and I think and I think like there were many like echoes of that happening with the CrowdStrike incident. So it's like, to me, it also seems like no matter how big the company, it seems like the problems are all the same, whether you're on a startup or on a big cybersecurity company that's affecting machines worldwide.
100%. Can I actually do the next one? Is that
Oh
is that
yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Take the
yeah.
next
Do
one?
the next one.
Feel
Should
free,
I?
feel free to share the screen again. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I love that we're ending on this idea, right? Like, hey, we have these companies of all shapes and sizes, and we're still seeing the same sorts of practices across them. And a big part of that, from my seat as a solutions engineer, right? And again, like in my prior time at Cypress, working with some of like the largest companies adopting Cypress and Cypress Cloud and all that type of jazz, is that DevOps practices are still disjunct, right? Like testers are testers, QA, who knows who they are? They're in a room and no one cares about them, that sort of thing. Like, hopefully not, right? I'm obviously using some hyperbole here.
Yeah.
Developers are developers. They don't want to do anything else. Infrastructure, platform engineering, they don't care about the customer. It's like all of this stuff, all of these practices are still very much disjunct. Like, I am seeing, some startups, some very large organizations start to look at this as a truly unified practice where everyone's working together. But that's not the norm, right? I would say that's absolutely not the norm here.
Yeah.
DevOps, to me, again, from my seat and from the work that I'm doing in the community and in the market, DevOps is still very disjunct, and there's a long way to go to really optimize so that issues like CrowdStrike and wild outages or embarrassing, hey, I can't log in, and you're a multi-billion-dollar company, like that's kind of a big yikes. But
Yeah.
that sort of thing happens. Philip, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think there's definitely like this disconnect between different fields. I'm very happy to see it's not everywhere. I think like there are more and more companies that get it. I think like there was this idea of shift left, like testing early and trying to like get the quality analysis and quality assurance closer to the early steps of development, and pretty much like making sure that the after years of division between testers and developers, we're sort of bringing them back together. But I definitely see like that this is not a trend that is present everywhere. And I also see like there is this it's not only an issue of how the company is set up, or where do the testers sit and where do the developers sit, but I feel like there has been this weird kind of phenomenon where you would have where your job position would sort of become part of your identity, and there would be some sort of almost like elitism of a certain role, right? I've been following that. I have been like, these things have been on my radar for so long that I have sort of built this hypersensitivity to it. But I can totally see like developers looking down on testers, like, you're not technical enough, like, we do the development work, if you weren't here tomorrow nothing would happen, but we are the ones that ship code, right? But there's also some of that happening on the tester side, right? Like, oh, developers don't even know how the product is being used. What the hell do they know about testing? We are going to be testing. We are the ones that are going to be telling them what is quality and what is not. And I, like, just a couple of months ago, I did a talk, hey, on agile testing days, about testing as a developer and developing as a tester, which is like exactly uh, giving the ideas sort of sharing the ideas of what developers do really well and testers should do too, and on the other hand, what testers do really well and developers should do. And I think like this should happen all across the different positions, because like yeah, I mean, we talked about CrowdStrike. we And that's just like one example, but I think like we could come up with many more examples in different companies where you have these high walls between different positions, and that's just no good. Like that's not going to work in the long term, especially if we want to deliver high quality working software and avoid stuff like, yeah, logging doesn't work or stuff like that.
100%. And I think, something that I've seen that's been really successful is, yeah, it's great when, leadership, people from the top down are saying, hey, we need to unify DevOps. We need to make sure that QA and everyone else is all working together, or at least aware of what's being built, that sort of thing. But what I've really seen lately that's been quite awesome is, and I see being able to say like, hey, we need to solve this problem and we need to bring everyone along with us. And I'm going to make the case to leadership, or I'm going to make the case to my compatriots within the organization that this is what needs to be done. So I actually met someone at Next.js. His name is Adam Edwards. He's a senior software engineer at the company. I won't say the company. You can find out who he is if you like. But he saw what we were doing and was like, hey, I was actually going to build something like this myself because I think it really unites like this DevOps practice of, testing, monitoring, software development. It's all together. And so I worked with him for something like 2 weeks on a POC, and it was honestly one of the most fun experiences I've had because I was working with their QA folks, right? I was working with developers, like he's a software developer, right? I was working with people that care about, synthetic monitoring and things like that, all in one group for a hackathon. And to me, it was the opposite of what this DevOps is still disjunct is, right?
Yeah.
I think, again, I'm still seeing this in the market. I'm still seeing like, oh, you can't use that term with this team. Like,
Yeah.
if you use that term, then you're going to make this other team mad. Like, if that's happening, obviously that happens for a myriad of reasons, but that's not what you want to hear, right? That is not a healthy organization for DevOps practices.
Yeah. So if you haven't done your 2025 resolutions yet, here's a suggestion
Right.
for all of the developer teams: like, lose the elitism, lose the walls between between the teams. Yeah, that was a great example. Thank you for that. All right, moving on. Let's go to another. Yeah, tests are still flaky. What do you know? I have yeah. It seems like when it comes to testing, we're still trying to solve the same problems. We're still trying to build stable tests on flaky apps. Like, this is where I'm going to be a little bit nostalgic. I really enjoyed my time at Replay. I really enjoyed the mission we were on, although it did not play out. I think it was a very interesting problem to tackle. And what I've seen, and what ultimately maybe have been one of the reasons why we decided to not go forward with the test suites, was that people don't really care that much. It seems like when it comes to test to flakiness, or like end-to-end testing and UI testing, or whatever happens in the browser testing, actually not in the browser, unit test and all kind of different tests can also be flaky. It seems like we just accepted the reality, like, it is what it is. We're just going to hit retry. We're just going to quarantine the test. we're going to do this and that to mitigate the problem, just so we can ship the software finally. And this has definitely been one of the lows. Like whenever I was having conversations with people, like you've been there, you know how how difficult those might sometimes have been. Like you ask companies, so how do you deal with like random test results, test flakiness, and they were like, yeah, we just like sort of don't care. Like we fix them whenever, or we delete the tests, or we put them in the quarantine, or we do something with that. I actually had a slide in one of my presentations where like different test flake fixing strategy were like mapped to the different stages of grieving. You know, like shock, denial, acceptance, etc. And you can like totally map every strategy, like deleting a test, quarantining to a different different stage of grievance. So yeah, it seems like this problem hasn't been improved. It's just like we have just developed more strategies around how to fix that problem, or how to like not really fix that problem, actually just like avoid fixing that problem, at least in my eyes. I don't know, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say this is obviously very accurate, right? Like, you see that with testing, you see it with pretty much everything involving the internet, right? Or machines or applications. There's so many different points of failure that, to some degree, it makes sense that you accept that a test will be flaky, right?
Yeah.
But it's about finding that balance of, hey, is it too flaky? Is it pretty much just failing now, right? And just figuring out, like, what your exposure to some sort of critical outage or critical failure is. But yeah, 100% tests are still flaky. Like, I don't think that will ever change. But you're right also that, like, I think our strategies for how we address them is something that has matured and evolved, or maybe not really matured in a way, but it definitely has evolved, right?
The thing is, like, what I really liked about what we did at Replay was that we sort of brought the application itself into equation, which is something that doesn't happen that often. And maybe that was like one of the problems, that we have like this different kind of frameworks, right, that we build our applications on, right? We have Next.js, React, Vue, Svelte, whatever. And it seems like there's so many levels of abstractions on top of like the HTML, CSS, and JS that ultimately is the bundle that you see in your browser, that like re-rendering issues and stuff like that sort of occurs, and it's almost inevitable if you think about how test script interacts with your application, because it moves really fast. It doesn't care if the element is attached or detached. Like, there are different kind of mechanisms of how you can mitigate that, but still they're not, maybe they're passing on the desktop, but when you take them to pipeline, you still have the problem. And there's like so many of these little issues that have created this environment of like, tests are flaky, what do we do? that it's, for me personally, I feel like it's kind of frustrating. And I think, like, if there was anything I wish that would improve in 2025, was that we would focus a little bit more when it comes to sources of flakiness to the applications themselves, right? So that we don't build frameworks that have inherent re-rendering issues. We don't build software that's going to be untestable. But yeah, maybe I'm just dreaming here. Someone in the comments is going to tell me like, yeah, dude, not gonna happen. But
yeah. I think you're dreaming on this one.
Yeah. All right.
Is a better world possible? Absolutely. Will we get there? Probably not.
Wouldn't count on it. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. One man can dream, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. Can you share my screen for the
oh
next one?
yeah, let's go
So
to there.
now we've diverged a little bit here, and my next one is actually cloud costs, right? And it's not cloud costs as in, oh, AWS costs me a lot of money because I've over-engineered my application or how many resources I need. It's literally cloud costs for not only companies like Netflix, right, who is spending literally an unknown amount of money on AWS, and Amazon is a direct competitor of theirs, right? Like they're spending millions upon millions of dollars on a competitor that also has a service to watch videos, right?
Yeah,
Which is insane. Like that's actually pretty crazy, right? Now we're also seeing that data centers that currently exist that are drawing so much energy from the grid are literally impacting residential homes experience of energy and energy quality, right? Which is leading to a shortening lifetime of computers and TVs and refrigerators and everything else because the quality of the energy is not so great, right?
yeah.
Um,
The crazy thing is that companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Meta are actually like investing in building nuclear power plants. This is something that I heard for the first time this year, which sounds crazy to me. But another thing I heard recently is that with AI, what we are actually hitting is not the size of the model limit, or like trying to approach the AGI or whatever. It's not the there's no limit on like computing, but the limit is actually the hardware. We are hitting hardware limits for what AI demands. And yeah, it's like these two things, like the power and the hardware limits, have been like this crazy revelations to me that yeah, that I heard people talking about. But I
yeah.
jumped in. I think you wanted to
No. So that's definitely a huge part of it, right? Like, because again, we're talking about the concept of cloud costs to not only companies but to society and to regular everyday people that have no real engagement with technology in this way, right? Like you can't get away from cloud costs at this point. And so what you actually see here in this upper right hand corner is getting back into, hey, the cost for companies themselves, right? Seeing
yeah.
3 out of every 5 organizations are seeing cloud costs spike by more than 25% in a year, right? Like, so there's this thing that everyone's paying for the internet that we know, for all the software development that's being done. And these costs are continuing to balloon and to grow. And so
Yeah.
it's great when you see things like, oh, yeah, cool. Microsoft is opening a data center. Meta is opening a data center. X is opening a data center. Cool. Their services aren't going to be free. They're going to want to get paid back, right?
Yeah.
So those costs are going to come from somewhere. So we're the consumers here, either through building applications or through the services that we pay for online. So cloud costs, we're seeing billions upon billions of dollars being put into this as it has been for the past few years, but we're definitely seeing a ramp up now. Things are going to get more expensive, right? Things are going to get more expensive online for sure.
Yeah. You also remind me of the infamous Uber strategy, right? When you flood the market with crazy low prices,
Yeah.
you take control of the whole market, and then you jack up the prices because now you own everyone. And you end up Uber ends up being more costly than the taxi service before Uber came in. It also seems like with the cloud costs and data centers that are eventually going to be needed to be paid for, like it seems to resonate. It seems to me like there are some similarities, that we're getting Spotify for very low price, right? If you compare that to what we had with iTunes or just like physical CDs and records that we were buying, it's crazy how much we can get in exchange. When it comes to streaming services, it's also like, although these days now you have to have your HBO and Netflix and Disney and and whatnot, it ends up being more
Yeah.
ends up being more costly than what we had before. But we like that's the example I'm trying to give. Like, it seems like those prices are going to go up, and we will be the ones that will be paying for them. So yeah, good times ahead. Are we making predictions or are we looking back? I'm not sure anymore.
But yeah, I think, to put it that way, it is difficult to not look at a year in review and to not think about the future, right?
Yeah,
It was
definitely.
very difficult to not start looking at these different articles and just kind of know, based on experience as an adult, right, in the world at this point, like what things will look like. I
Yep.
think a positive thing about these cloud costs is, at least for, people that are maybe technically savvy, you're seeing a lot of people now adopt, home networks and things like that. You're seeing a lot of folks use things like Plex and that, sort of like alternative streaming, if you will. And I think that's just going to become more popular, right? People are interested in owning more of their data. People are interested in owning more of their media.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you have to be okay with $30 subscriptions for a thing that you only watch like a few times a week, right?
Yep. Yeah. It still keeps me up at night. Like I have Netflix, Disney, and HBO Max, and I'm thinking like I should probably not pay for all three. Maybe I should just pay for two or maybe just one. But which one? Because like kids watch the Disney things. I like the HBO things, and Netflix is kind of everything. Like we both watch. So
Yeah.
which one? Which one do we shut down? And the decision ends up being pushed to the next month, and and you're stuck. You're stuck.
So that's exactly the problem Geico had this past year, and you can read about it online, right? And I'll actually talk about it in the upsides. Is they're paying $300 million a year to, I think, 8 different cloud service providers. So while you're positioning it like, hey, I've got 5 streaming services and they all
Yeah.
cost me this much money, as a large corporation, they're dealing with the exact same thing, right? They have all these different cloud service providers and they're paying essentially, a monthly subscription, if you will, for the
Yeah.
services that they're using. And they have to consider, like, is this worth it? Is this actually worth whatever it is that service is building? And
Yeah.
I think that's important. Talking about the cloud cost is huge. And I would say it's a very, very big bummer now. I think just to put a cap on it, something that I saw that was interesting was, people online are always saying like, well, how do you estimate your costs? And I saw something really funny that was like, okay, you do all this complex math and then you multiply it by 2.5 times. It's like, no matter what, you're still going to be like, oh, I have no clue how much it's going to cost me, but it's going
Yeah.
to be more than what I thought.
Yeah.
You
All
ready,
right.
you ready for the next one? You're going to do the next
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. Let's move on. Oh yeah. So I took one of the I tried to like look at different things,
Love
and one
this.
of the interesting events that happened this year was the WordPress wars. That was kind of nuts. And it's definitely up there with like the lows of this year, because it seems like there was uh, this war where users ended up being the victims at the end. It's kind of like CrowdStrike, but very different thing, right? So for those of you who don't know, the owner of WordPress kind of got mad at the makers of WP Engine, which for me, I didn't even know that those are two different companies, and maybe that's part of the problem, right? So WP Engine is a different kind of company from the one that is making WordPress. There's a huge ecosystem of plugins and things that WP Engine does, but apparently, like, they don't contribute to the WordPress, which is open source, I believe. Uh, they don't contribute so much. So then so what happened? Somehow the WordPress owner convinced himself that he was owed a 8% royalty fee for all of the money that WP Engine makes, which was kind of crazy. But what ended up happening is that there were all kinds of blocking stuff happening, and lots of controversy, and no one really enjoyed that. So I thought like that was an interesting one to pick out as sort of a event that happened this year. What do you think, Jonathan? Have you watched this one?
Yeah. I've definitely looked at a few of these articles over the past few months, and kind of like you said, at the end of the day, the victim is the customer, right? Like,
Yep.
as someone where I got started was, building WordPress and Drupal sites, and I don't have a place in my heart for them at all. I do not love what they are, but it makes sense that that's where people get started, and that's where sort of like, for people that want to manage websites without knowing anything about version control or coding, like, you have this thing that's a little bit more technical, a little bit more customizable. So the fact that those people, right, are the people who suffered the most is the most unfortunate part about this. Like, whoever owes whoever money, right, like, that's something that needs to be figured out elsewhere without impacting users who are just trying to serve, their customers. And I know, again, like, think about the people who are doing it. It's like mom and pop shops. It's like super small universities, right? Maybe even some really large universities. There's some very huge WordPress and Drupal sites out there, but it's like, I just can't imagine wanting to punish those people and those types of organizations, just for using your product. That seems like the worst thing that could happen.
I tried to do a quick Google search of how much of the web does WordPress own, and it's 43.7% of the web is running on WordPress. So yeah, that's a huge one. I don't know what else to add to this. It's just whenever I thought about like what is the loose situation or what is the low of this year, somehow WordPress got into there. So that kind of thing should not happen. It wasn't a nice one.
But what a wild thing again. Like, I love these recaps, because the way that you're touching on it right now, right, is, hey, before I did this quick Google search, didn't know that 40% of the internet was WordPress, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, again, like, this sort of news that for software developers, I haven't touched a WordPress site 4 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to look at one, but I am looking at them all day long, right? So it is interesting that, like, hey, this kind of casual news we see on the side actually affects so many people around. It affects us in some way. I don't even know how it affected me, right? So I think that's awesome. So you're spot on with saying that this WordPress thing was a big deal. And obviously it was showing up quite a lot.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the number 5 of downs of this year. And that's kind of a joke. All companies are now AI companies. And we are going to be talking about AI as a high of this year as well. But I think it's a mixed bag with AI, because so much impact has been created by OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and whoever, right? Everyone has their own LLM, and has been such a wave that everyone wants to hop on. And I should have saved that link, but I saw this post on Reddit that was discussing like the most ridiculous applications of AI, and here are some of the top picks.
I'm scared to see this.
So I have read about AI enhanced water. Wow. And then there are like many companies that have rebranded just pure automation as AI. So for example, if you're buying a washing machine, that's now AI driven. And then one of the creepiest examples that I have heard is an AI teddy bear. apparently that was a real product that would, like, you could customize it with like your name and things you like, and apparently it would generate a story for you. I can imagine that might have been a nightmare fuel for for many kids, at least for those whose parents bought them the AI teddy bear. But that doesn't sound like a good idea to me. But yeah, every company is now an AI company, for better or worse. Some executions are done well, some not so much. Also, when it comes to AI products, this year was the year of AI Pin by Humane and Rabbit AI. And Rabbit AI was actually a very funny story, because apparently, like, it had this AI engine. I forgot what the name of it was, but they were like, hey, you can just order a meal or order an Uber with your Rabbit AI device. In the back end, it was just using a Playwright script that would click through the page and try to try to make that order for you. And what's worse, it would do logins for you, right? So you would log in through Google, you would log in through whatever, and it would just like save your tokens and save your stuff, and be very, very insecure. Which, like, honestly, I don't want to sound like I don't know what, but when I first heard about this thing, like, you log in just once, and then you can use the AI thing. It just screamed insecure at the very start. I knew something was fishy when when I first saw the demo. But we got to see that, because apparently, like, the whole Rabbit AI code got leaked on the internet, and then of course people would analyze it, and then they would find a Playwright thing. It was a beautiful story. I think it gave me a laugh, of course, like, not for the people that were affected. Hopefully, like, not so many were, but it was interesting to watch this two AI physical products fail so spectacularly. Um, so yeah.
100%. This is one of the situations where we've done some crossover again. So if you want to share my screen.
Oh yeah, AI ethics. You put a more noble spin on it. I
Yeah.
just trashing companies.
No, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I really like that we viewed this in like two different ways here. But for me, it's again all about AI ethics. And AI isn't necessarily the problem. And I think Chandra, what you're sharing in the chat right now is 100% spot on, right? We've already been using AI before, the last year and a half. Like, maybe it was like, less intelligent, but we've been using it. So
Yeah.
what I want to highlight though is that in this last year, what we've really seen is a lot of issues with AI ethics. And something that I really want to highlight is the amount of fake users, right? The amount of fake users on pretty much every single social media platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it. And this has been a problem before the advent of AI, right?
Yeah.
But it's, to me at least, it's only becoming worse and worse over time. I manage some Facebook groups on Facebook, obviously, and to see the people that are like trying to join the group and like how they're answering questions now and things like that. Like, I like looking and investigating and making sure that I'm not blocking real people. But there's definitely a lot of fake people in the real world now that solely exist. I wish I was wearing my tinfoil hat. Solely exist to influence you and to get clicks and likes and to, try to drive up revenue on YouTube and video likes and things like that. It's pretty wild. Philip, do I sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat right now? Is this accurate?
No. Have you heard about the AI granny?
I have. That's why I wasn't ready for that as I drink some water. But yeah, I've heard about the AI granny. I'm glad that this is where our culture is right now.
It's I mean, it's not a granny that you would like talk to, but it was it was actually sort of a spin on the fake AI users, because obviously with fake AI users you can now have more scams. And there is this project, I don't know exactly who is behind it, but there was this AI granny that would pretty much be sort of a bait for the scammers, like not the AI scamming, but mostly for like the telephone scams that happen a lot. By the way, there are some beautiful YouTube channels of like scammer payback and I don't know. There are a couple of names, but if you Google telephone scams, you'll find some amazing YouTubers doing God's work on those scammers, because they pretty much target like elderly people. They target people that are vulnerable and are trying to exploit them for money. Usually, like, and apparently it's a booming business. It makes millions a year just by attacking these vulnerable people. So AI Granny is sort of a honeypot thing where the AI scammer would actually be connected to the AI Granny, whose whole purpose is to waste their time, because the more time that is wasted by the scammers, that is more time bought for the other ones, or to be saved from those scammers. So it's a beautiful idea. Like, even though, like, when we look at the AI ethics and like different kind of problems that emerge from that, it seems like the good guys also have the same weapons to fight back. So, because I've been hearing like this doomsday predictions with AI, but it looks like the good guys have the same weapons. So might be might be interesting to watch what happens in between those two. Definitely, those telephone scammers are an interesting idea. That's why I mentioned the granny.
100% right, and I think that's also spot on. The two things I want to highlight, in addition to this fake users and sort of like this response to scamming and influencing and things like that, are OpenAI launching the $200 Chat GPT subscription for research use, right? I think you know, uh, again, this is my opinion. It's no one else's opinion, that sort of thing. But the fact that you have a company that started off as a nonprofit with the name OpenAI, but was never truly an open source project at all, right? Has never released an open source model to the public ever, right? All of a sudden, also going for profit here. I think just this month, in addition to that, charging a $200 subscription fee, right? This sort of thing to me, like, just begs the question of like what AI ethics even mean to a lot of these larger companies, especially when you think about OpenAI as a pioneer in this field, right? It helped really ignite an interest in AI, like Chandra was saying earlier. AI has been around for quite a long time. It is now just something that consumers can really start engaging with. So I think that there is something to be said about how AI is being positioned, either as like open source or open source adjacent, or for the benefit of humanity, when really we're just seeing the same sorts of plays that we've seen in any other hype cycle, right? Where there are some key players that are in it and they're going to make a lot of money if they get out ahead of everyone else, and they're shaping a story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts there, Philip?
Yeah, I think like pointing out the ethics of different companies. I think that's a very good. I think it's a very good point to make. I've recently heard a conversation with the CEO of Anthropic. His take was really interesting. Like, it seems at least they position themselves as a company that tries to deal with like ethics dilemma, and tries to deal with security of AI, which I think, well, by the way, we have Jason Arbin here who just recently, like a couple of minutes ago, I saw his video on 2025 predictions. One of those was that security is going to be really, really important. And yeah, if you are really AI savvy and want to explore this space, going into AI security might be a very interesting job, because it seems like not only the open AI and Anthropics and Googles of this space are looking for people like you, but also like just companies that are using different AI models. They are going to be very concerned with security. One more thing that when it comes to ethics is, like, whenever we talk about AI ethics, it always reminds me of like autonomous vehicles, and that reminds me of the famous trolley car problem, right? You know that one, right? You
Yeah,
have
of
a
course. Yeah,
trolley
yeah.
car speeding, you have one person on one track, you have four people on the other track, and you have the lever, like, do you pull it or do you not? Who dies? And it's interesting because, like, that's a philosophical problem that different schools of philosophy or different thoughts, like, I don't know what's the correct word for there, but you might have a different philosophy and approach this problem differently. And it seems like it's not like we have a solution for these types of dilemmas, like, because like it doesn't end with the trolley problem. Usually what you will do is I think the loop should not be at the end.
It's a WordPress site. What can I say?
Yeah. But what you end up discussing is like, okay, but now you have this different problem where you have one life versus four life, and how do you deal with that? And you find out that finding a good answer is really, really hard, and we don't like really agree on it most of the time, because some people are going to be utilistic, and they say, like, let's do best for the most of the people. And some say, well, hey, let's talk about minorities because we are going to affect them. And like, you can go back to the autonomous vehicle and have this same sort of dilemma, like, when you have a car approaching and you can have a person on the left, person on the right, who do you choose to kill? Or do you choose to kill the driver? And those are really hard problems that,
Yep.
like, it doesn't seem like we have the correct answer to. And now we're handing it over to AI. And when you when I look at the title you have on the top left, AI can't think critically but people must. It looks to me like we're trying to give decision making to a technology without really having clear inputs on what the technology should do. And it's easy to set rules for, hey, you are an AI agent that deals with code, so I need you to write code. Or you're an AI agent dealing with I don't know, stocks, so I need you to deal with stocks. It's going to get a lot more complicated when we are going to take AI to medical area, or like more complex areas where human lives are involved. Because you can say, like, all right, whenever human life is involved, you should protect life. But then you have like multiple lives together, and like, how do you decide? It's yeah, I've been on a rant, sorry for that. It's just like that bright red AI ethics is just staring at me, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
my mind is racing.
So I mean, so literally, your reaction, right, is why, for me, this is number one. Again, we're seeing billions upon billions of dollars being poured into AI, like you said earlier, right? We're seeing every company raise their hand and say, "I'm an AI company. There's AI in everything." We didn't necessarily ask for it as consumers, etc. But again, what comes up for us is, based on the type of software that you're choosing to use, right? You have a choice as a consumer to some degree, but now that, AI will have self-driving, there will be self-driving cars using AI. We're going to be working on AI systems, right? We have AI SRE bots that are being built all over the place. We have AI testing solutions that are being put all over the place. And like, that's fine. That's great. But at some point, again, like, this starts having very real world repercussions, and it already is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Obviously, this is getting people engaged here. It's huge. And I think the biggest thing again for AI ethics for me is that if you look here on the bottom right hand side, we have Sam Altman, right, the CEO of OpenAI, and the guy who just 2 years ago was saying, "Oh, AGI is gonna change the world. It's gonna revolutionize humanity. It's gonna change everything." Just a month and a half ago or so was saying, "Oh, actually, when it comes to safety concerns, it's not really going to change that much." So the important thing I think to remember here when we're talking about AI and its implementation in our daily workflows, right? I'm sure we're all using AI for solutions and etc. Is these solutions they're being sold, right? Like Sam Altman isn't a guru. Sam Altman isn't someone with just no ambition. He's a CEO of a company that's now going to be for profit. That means something about his ethics, and that means something about what he will say and what he will do to drive investor and shareholder value, right?
Yep.
That is a thing to be aware of. But anyway,
Yeah, and plus he's the person that stole Scarlett Johansson's voice, so
yeah, and no one should ever upset Scarlett Johansson, and I think
that's
that's
true.
that's,
That's true.
that's where we should park
She's
it.
the queen. Yeah, that's where ethics should start and end, with Scarlett Johansson. All right. I have done my 5 lows of 2024. Have you done all four? All you
I've done
have? You have one
done
more.
all five. Do I have one more? Let me see.
I have done all four. I'm at number 5. All companies are now
No, we're
AI.
good. We're
So
good.
we're good. So did you do your 5?
I did my 5. Yeah.
All right.
We
So we
shared it. We shared
finally
it
get
with
to
you.
the positives.
We finally get to the positives.
Yeah. All right. So should I start, or how do we do that?
Yeah, let's actually let me take the first
All right.
step. But
Go ahead.
also I want to speak to something real fast because your friend Jason, I think, is making a good point, right? The history of human ethics is less than perfect. 110% agree on that. I can't agree anymore, right? AI driving is statistically safer than human driving. I will say that for sure. Waymo is. Uh, any other solutions out there? I'll have to do the research, but I agree with you on that as well. Philip, anything else
I will
before I
see.
pivot into the ups?
I mean, we'll see when we take it to highway. Like
Yeah.
right now, Waymo is operating on the right angle streets of Phoenix. So we'll see how it does on when it comes to bigger speeds. But I have been in a Waymo car. It's been creepy. It's been fun.
Cool. Can you share my screen for
Yeah,
my
definitely.
number
Let's go.
5? With number 1 for me being the best. So I think we also should have set that up, right?
All right.
So number 5 for me is the least best of the highs. Anyway, tool consolidation, and I can't believe this is actually on my list. As someone that I love when teams are able to adopt any tools that they want to adopt and sort of like spearhead new things. Actually, that's been almost a key part of how I've seen like really great software growth and adoption of new tools. It happens somewhere. Someone does it. But what I think I've seen here in the last year and what I've been reading about is tool consolidation, right? Where you have these really large and sometimes mid-sized organizations really think about like, hey, we have tool sprawl, we have all these different services we're paying for. We need to optimize, right? We need to really figure out what we're doing here, what our risk is by using all of these different tools. And I think we've seen quite a few of these sort of like larger consolidation projects happen. And as I'm talking to customers, as I'm talking to prospects or folks in the community, this is coming up over and over and over again, right? Where people at the top are really thinking critically about tool consolidation. And it's not just about the money, right? It is about velocity. It is about developer experience. It's about being able to have some commonality between the teams. That way, if you do get shifted around in some reorg, you can get up and going pretty quickly versus, oh, it's going to be another 6 months before I can really dedicate time to this team. Philip, what are your thoughts here on this upside for 2024?
I'm honestly surprised because like I haven't thought about this But now that you're talking about this, it does remind me of something that I have seen recently. I've been playing with a testing tool called VTest, and it's a unit and integration testing tool, sort of a substitution for Jest. And what VTest team has been slowly adopting is this browser mode, which is sort of like a component testing in Cypress, where you can just mount your component inside the browser, so you can see how that component really looks like, and then you can actually take actions on that component. And to do those actions, you can use Playwright's or WebDriver IO's API to interact with it. So it seems like the unit testing is getting closer to end-to-end testing with Playwright and WebDriver IO. So I'm probably not talking about the same thing you have been, but what I have been observing is that when it comes to testing, it seems like the tools are slowly like converging on sort of a unified language and unified approach of how things should be done when it comes to um, the whole testing pyramid, whether it is unit testing, integration, and end to end. So I think like designing your tools in this way, if this is the trend you have been seeing, I think it will play very well for those tools in the long term. So, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree here as well, right? Like that's what you just described is not necessarily what I was pointing at, but I think it is almost like a version of it, right? Where it's, hey, when I'm making a new tool, there's already an existing sort of mental model of how I should do a test, right? There's already something that exists, like, okay, I can build a solution, but I want it to use the Playwright test library on top of it, right? Like that sort of thing. Like that is tool consolidation, because that makes it easier for me to use whatever tool you're building later. I don't have to completely rethink how I do a thing. I can just get up and running very quickly, right? So I think that's great.
It also reminds me of, like, this was years ago, but it was really an idea that struck me quite a lot when Slack was just starting. One of their promo videos was highlighting how well they integrate to every tool you already use.
Yep.
And it seems like this was really part of their success, because Slack was this new category of product. Everyone was sending emails back then. But Slack was this thing like, hey, you can use this for work, and it integrates into everything you already use. So whether you are doing DevOps, whether you are doing sales engineering, if you want your notifications, this is your notification center right here. So it seems like there is this push-pull tension between when in companies where you like kind of want to explore new stuff, but then you like need to consolidate and you need to make sure you're all moving in the same direction, because we all seen teams that use way too many tools and it's just a giant mess. Like, try to onboard anyone new into that team, and it's crazy.
100%. What's your next one? What would you do next?
My highlight of the year.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So I put Cursor and V0.dev should probably be here. These two tools have been sort of a highlight of my year, at least the second half of this year, because I felt like my workflow has completely changed with these tools. And I'm not paid by these tools. I'm not trying to advertise them. I don't think they have any affiliate marketing set up. If they have, I should probably have checked it out already, because I've been talking about them so much that that I probably converted some users. But what has been really interesting to me was that Cursor, in a way, sort of mimicked the X factor of ChatGPT, right? So we talked about this. The AI is not a new thing. It has been here for a couple of years already. what was interesting about ChatGPT was the interface. That because you could spin up some Python magic and do AI stuff before ChatGPT, but who would do that, right? But with ChatGPT, you could just chat with the LLM, and that made it so much easier, so accessible that everyone started using it, and it brought this huge wave, and suddenly every company is an AI company, right? Uh, with Cursor, I felt like it found a way to provide you with an interface where you can use AI for writing code. Because before you could like go back and forth and exchange messages with ChatGPT, but anytime you try to solve a more complex problem, you would get stuck, right? It would not work all that well. And then Cursor came with such a good interface that it was a breeze to work with, and everyone who was using it could instantly get it, because what Cursor would do, it would provide a diff of suggestions to the file you have opened. You could feed it with docs. You could feed it with your own code base. You can do like, yeah, so much. The interface was so good that in fact Microsoft with VS Code, with their latest release, decided to first of all provide Copilot for free.
Yeah,
Open Copilot for all kinds of different AI models, and you can now use Anthropic. You can use OpenAI. You can see any kind of LLMs with it, and has pretty much copied most of the interface from Cursor. To be fair, Cursor forked the whole VS Code and built in interface on top of it, so they're sort of feeding off each other. But it was interesting to see Microsoft respond to Cursor, because it has been so good that they decided like, oh, let's build something similar. At least that's how, as a consumer, I view it, because that's what I've been observing. And v0.dev was another great thing, especially when v0.dev implemented the chatcn UI, where you can literally type into a input what you are trying to build. Then v0.dev will generate that and will give you an npx command to like directly download the interface you have just generated and continue working on your computer. Such a beautiful experience. I have been using it quite sometimes, because I'm building a new course, 99 Cypress tips, and it's a testing course, so we need to have something to test. But sometimes I have this very specific testing situation that I need to build an app for it. So I do that in like 3 minutes, and the demo is live. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I think again, we're gonna have some crossover in our top 5 as well. If you want to share your screen, I'll hit mine. But yeah,
yeah. Should I switch to yours now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So you know, this is my number 2, right? And it's sorry about that. Let me go over here. It's AI, right? And so agentic AI is literally what you're talking about right now, right?
Yeah.
The ability for AI to not only just, understand some input, but to reason about the input and then respond again and again and again. This is a big deal. And in fact, that this is what has seems to have unlocked additional AI value that without there being some practice of agency, right? We would have stalled a little bit on the promise of AI. And so this is a huge deal. And like you've said, now I can just build applications that help me demo something in minutes that used to take me days.
Yeah.
This is huge, right? Like this is literally unlocking so much potential for us, not only to build these applications. Again, like the impact of that application is that you're teaching thousands of people about something, right? You're creating some content that is super impactful And I think that's huge. And this is the positive side of AI.
Yeah. I have been using AI also as a learning tool, right? So now not only AI generates my code, but I can highlight a piece of code and tell it like, hey, explain this to me because I don't understand it. And it gives a really good explanation. And now I'm an AI driven developer.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, right? So I think for me, what I've been investigating a lot with AI is, okay, I have a spare laptop that's like super powerful. Yes, it's a Windows machine, right? But essentially, I'll serve Mixtral, right, which is Mistral's like open source LLM, and I'll serve that on this laptop. Uh, Attach that to something called Open Web UI, and I'll actually drop the link in here. Open Web UI works with either publicly hosted agents, self-hosted LLMs, etc. And it's like you have Chat GPT, only it's free, right? So for
Yeah.
me, my emphasis is on I want to spend less money on the cloud. I want to rely less on these publicly hosted models that I don't necessarily trust, right? And I'd rather just have this service that I own myself that I can interact with whenever I want, or I can share with my friends, right? So the fact that as a home brewer, right, who's I'm technical enough, I can get this stuff to work and have it do exactly what it needs to do. That's super powerful, right? And I
We
think
should
that
probably explore this at our next stream because like I haven't done anything like that. It might be interesting if it's not like too personal or too secret.
oh yeah, it's
You
definitely
said
not.
you don't want to rely on cloud and live streaming. That would probably go a little bit against that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that sounds like a cool demo that you
Yeah,
could do.
I mean, so that's the entire thing, right? It's like for all of these people out in the wild right now, and some of us that have been laid off and are, trying to re-enter the workforce, and we're thinking about like, well, what are the skills that we need? Obviously, cybersecurity we've highlighted as being one of the core ones. If you look online, pretty much anywhere, there's a dearth of people in that field. AI will only continue to have more and more people in that field. Cloud computing and networking, only more and more people. So it's like, how can you blend all three of these things together, right? Like home networking, standing up your own AI, figuring out like, how to best prompt things, how to start doing things like agentic AI yourself. This is where the future is going. There's going to be, maybe I'm making a prediction here. Jason, I'm going to have to watch your live stream later on, but my prediction is right that we're going to see a lot more of this where there's less and less web applications. There's going to be a lot more applications where people just talk and get their information. And hopefully it's done by smaller guys, right? It's done by people just in the field.
Yeah. That sounds I mean, not only you can it makes me think like if you have an experience with spinning up your own local AI, I think that's kind of experience would really translate well to working with a in company AI model because like not everyone wants to use like not only you as a person but also companies do not want to use AI from Anthropic, from OpenAI, from Google, Microsoft, etc. Um, so that's an interesting. We should definitely do that do that stream as well. I think that might be really useful because I've been hearing that a lot. Maybe AI will not substitute a real developer, but a developer that knows AI will probably take a job from someone who does not have that knowledge.
100%, right? And again, this will be the last thing I put on this because obviously we can talk about this kind of stuff all day long. But for me, the thing that I'm most curious about is if I have my own LLM that is served in my own home network and I have access to it anywhere, right? What would it mean if that LLM had access to all of my knowledge, right?
Yeah.
I'm not interested in giving that to OpenAI. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in giving that to anyone, but it would be cool if, all my own Google Docs were in this LLM. If
Yeah.
all of my, relevant things that I'm cool with if I did get hacked, right? Someone being able to have like, I think that'd be really powerful and it'd make me better at what I do, which is being me. That's the best thing I can be great at, right? So
Yeah, your Google Docs are probably fed to Google's
yeah,
AI
exactly.
anyway. So,
Yeah, exactly.
all
Cool.
right, move on to
What's
the
your
next
next?
one.
Yeah, yeah,
Should I go?
yeah.
All right. I mean, we're sort of still progressing, still on the same topic, but I did have a cursor as a separate thing, and AI, the progress it's been making as its own highlight. And we've been obviously talking a lot about AI, so we can make this a little bit shorter. But there's like this couple of things that stood out to me when it came to AI and its progress. Like at the beginning of the year, it was the first time we heard about Sora. That is now available to us, right? At the beginning of the year, it felt like total magic, but now it's kind of here. I mean, it's not um, how would I say, like it's not perfect, but like already where we are, we're kind of it's kind of amazing. Um, there as I already mentioned, we are hitting the hardware limits when it comes to AI, which is crazy. This did not seem like a thing that would happen, but here we are. There's a lot of back and forth on whether the AI is going to keep on improving or if we're going to hit a limit. And I remember like just a couple of months ago, there were like a lot of different opinions being voiced around like, oh yeah, AI is going to hit a limit because it's not going to have any new information to learn from. But now it seems like the limit is actually not like the knowledge base, but it's actually the hardware requirements that these technologies have. Um, it also seems to me like really interesting. I think someone asked about test automation solution involving AI. That seems to be the area that is pretty much like there are so many companies I see tackling this problem. We have like VS Code when they first started responding to the cursor popularity. The first problem they addressed was generating tests. Right, there are all of these different companies like Octamind, Whoppy, Tinyfish, Testers AI or Checky AI from Jason, who's been active in the chat. It seems like testing seems to be like a very well rounded problem for AI to work on or to have these different AI solutions applied to. Uh, yeah, so that's like one of the things. Another thing, like yeah, even Chrome DevTools have their own AI. NVIDIA is skyrocketing because they're the ones running all of this technology. So it's been like the progress that AI has been doing just over the past 12 months. I think that's a highlight of its own. So that's yeah. Don't want to spend too much time on it because we talked about it. Oh, Jonathan sort of disappeared. So I don't know what I'll do without him, but he'll be back shortly. I'm sure there's only a slight problem with connection or something. So we'll have him right back. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what happened. hopefully Jonathan comes back. But let's carry on. Oh, yeah, here you are.
Hey.
Hey, welcome back. What happened?
Yeah, so I got some dudes cutting down a tree or something, so I think they cut my internet.
Oh shoot.
Oh yeah, it's all good. But yeah, I think I missed the last part of that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
figured this
I've
more
been
on.
I've been talking about AI progress. I think I wrapped it up. I'm not sure if is there anything you want to add? Like, I just commented on how far we got since the
Yeah, yeah,
beginning of the year, but we can move on. I think you wanted to share a slide. You
yeah,
had
yeah. Let me
something
go
on
ahead and
there.
share that again.
Yeah,
1 second. Cool. Sorry for dropping.
no
One more.
problem.
Here we go. And yes, Chow, I definitely think we should all learn to build our own nuclear power plants to power our own LLMs. 100%. No, all jokes aside, though, I do think that small LLMs with some agency or agentic behavior built in, as you probably already know, right? It helps smaller LLMs score higher on benchmarks when compared to much larger LLMs. So the power draw is way less significant, right? It's something that people like Philip and I and other technical folk can wield pretty easily without a huge power draw that impacts a bunch of people. But this is I think my number 4, Philip, and it's cloud repatriation. So just like we saw on the other side here on the downs, cloud costs are spiraling out of control. Something that I love seeing. I think every time a company does cloud repatriation and Angel gets their wings, this is going to be a thing. This is a thing that's currently happening. And I mentioned Geico earlier. They were spending something like $300 million a year on 8 or 10 different cloud service providers. They repatriated from the cloud, right? They decided, hey, we can't make these bills make sense, and we're not going to. So we're gonna move back to on-prem and solve this problem ourselves, right? And what
That's
you can
interesting.
see,
Because I heard, like a couple of months ago, I heard DHH talking about this, about how I think the whole 37 Signals company, 37, I don't remember the number, but their company pretty much like moved away from the cloud to their own servers that they physically have. And it sounded like crazy talk at that point, but it seems like this is where the industry is now moving. I'm honestly, I'm like not wasn't aware of this.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily that it's a full-fledged, movement where, hey, cloud repatriation, hashtag 2025, that sort of thing. But it definitely is a thing, right? Where I think the ballooning costs of the cloud, vendor lock-in for, AWS, like, et cetera, right? You're building all of your systems into using these guys. And then, like we also saw, if your bill's increasing by 25%, year over year, et cetera, how can you make that make sense? It is cheaper for you to have your own hardware and have people that manage that hardware, or do something like a distributed cloud, et cetera, than have all your eggs in one very expensive basket. So yeah, this is definitely something that I've seen come up quite a bit more in 2024, and I think we're going to see a lot of it in 2025, to be honest.
All right. I have no additional thoughts to this, so
Let's go. Yeah,
we're good to move on.
Yeah.
Should I do the next one, or will you do?
100%.
All right, let's move on. All right, so this one is close to my heart. Something that I have been exploring this year more and more. So I'm not saying this is a highlight that's like I've been following the industry and this is where everything is moving. It's more of I've been exploring this, made me curious, and I feel like I would be talking about it. So we talked about tools. I made a little side point on tools, like sort of converging together. So there's this new protocol called WebDriver BiDi, which is like a bidirectional protocol to communicate with the browser. So when we talk about test automation and where things are moving, it seems like this WebDriver BiDi might be something that's going to make a change in the future. So when it comes to Selenium, it seems like past couple of years everything was moving away, right? Because Selenium is slow and it's flaky and blah blah blah. All these kind of stereotypes we have built around Selenium, which are not necessarily always true. And as David Burns would put out, and he wrote a blog in response to my post, it's not the testing frameworks that are flaky or stable. It's how we use them and what we use them on. That's a very TLDR of his blog post. You should read it. But when it comes to WebDriver BiDi, it is this new protocol for communicating, for automating browsers. And it's already been applied to WebDriver IO. So if you have ever tried WebDriver IO on version 9, you can already use this BiDi protocol. So in short, what is this? I can post a video that explains this very, very nicely. But in short, what Playwright has brought to the game has been this different spin on automating browsers. Pretty much, Playwright was built by some of the people that moved from Google Puppeteer, and Puppeteer was using Chrome DevTools protocol to open a page, click on a button, find a element on the page, etc. And it's been really fast because the way it was communicating was through WebSocket, and so the connection would be like on there all the time, which would make it faster compared to classic WebDriver that would communicate pretty much like through calling of an HTTP request. So the communication would take a little bit longer. It might get flaky at some points because you're sort of prompting the page to find an element and prompting to do a click, and you would need to build like your own tooling around retriability, etc. I'm rambling on already, but this WebDriver IO is sort of a kind of a same thing as the Chrome DevTools protocol, but actually standardized for every browser. And the vision is to substitute that with the classic WebDriver server protocol. I'm mumbling now. I'm not choosing the right words. If they would, or Christian Broman from WebDriver IO would be here, they would probably correct me. But what this means for the test automation and the frameworks we have is that Selenium is going to get faster. WebDriver IO is already adopting this BiDi protocol, and it's been interesting to watch it. Playwright will probably adopt this protocol at some point because, hey, they don't have to ship their own versions of browsers, but they can use this protocol and just automate on real browsers. And it seems like Cypress is also making steps into applying this WebDriver BiDi protocol at some areas. I don't think they will apply it across the board, but we'll see. I don't know. But it seems, again, like these tools are sort of slowly converging to a solution, to a standardized solution, or it seems this is something that's happening. So I have been following this in the past year, and it's been kind of interesting to me. So I'm not making any predictions, but I'm definitely putting it out there. Like, watch for this thing that's happening, because I think it might be interesting. And I see Murat is advertising his course, Playwright Vitesse versus Cypress Ultimate Showdown. I think Murat is the guy to follow when it comes to test automation. So make sure you watch for that one.
There's a great question from Chow if you want to answer that, Philip.
Yeah, I don't feel authorized to answer that question. I think yes, but I'm not 100% sure. I have never been like too much into mobile app testing, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think so, and I'm not 100% sure. So if there's anyone in chat that knows for sure, feel free to answer Chow's question.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have too many thoughts on this. I've seen this quite a bit. It seems like this is where things are moving. Obviously, testing on real browsers is great. I would say that there is a downside to testing on real browsers, right? And that is that even your browsers can be flaky. So sometimes it's a real pain when you're on like, you're on Chrome 107 or something like that, and there's like a memory leak in that particular browser, and then you're going to be, again, it comes back down to what you said at the very beginning, right? Which is, hey, it's the applications you're testing, it's how you're writing the test, and it's what the applications are running on. So
Yeah.
It'll solve some problems for sure, but it'll also highlight some other problems, I think.
Yep. All right. We can move on. I think you have shared your slide, right? Let's show it.
Yep. Yep. So this is again for me, right? I live in this constant state of duality. So we were talking about labor relations as one of the downs of 2024, and I think that the skills gap that we highlighted then is a positive. It's a positive for folks in the community right now, folks that are, spending this time learning, trying to outmaneuver a bit and think about the future, because we know that there's a skills gap. We know that, there are these heavy investments in tech happening. It's not just, AI is going to replace us. It's people need to know how to work with these things and set up networks and, run cloud computing or be able to navigate, network repatriation and stuff like that. These types of things are going to be in high demand. People are going to be being paid a lot of money. Even if you're not an expert, if you just know how to do something, you're going to be ahead of the pack, right? The more projects you can show where, you've stood up services in Kubernetes on Azure, or you've stood up services on a home network that you've built yourself or that you already have, like that's huge. That's going to be a big deal. And again, like you can see the human investment, right? Just from people like you and me right now and home networking devices alone has already been huge, or will be huge by 2030. And there is a reason for that. It's because, again, people want to own their own data. They want to own their own media. They want to control these things themselves. And this is going to be a huge industry. And there's a lot of potential here. Philip, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with this, and I have been having discussions. One of the presentations I mentioned earlier, test like a developer, develop like a tester. One of the point that I'm making there is that testers should become more technical, because there's definitely a it has value when you have a better technical skill. And you just pretty much like the point that I'm trying to make, like you should not stay on the same spot all the time. Like things are going to change. The technologies we are using today are not going to be here in 10, 20 years. So making improvements on your skills, making like gaining some knowledge is just going to be inevitable if you're in tech. Like you need to move on. You need to learn new stuff, and like AI is a great opportunity here, but there's a lot more. And what you are pointing out here, I think is it sort of underlines that yeah, there's going to be there are going to be changes. Industries are going to move towards those changes, and they're going to need people that understand what change and how to deal with that. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, small correction here, right? You said that the solutions that we're using today may not be around in 10 to 20 years. I will say that Selenium, I believe, has been around for 20 years now. So be careful what you say here, because
that's true.
Yeah, it may be a thing. Should I do the next one, or how many more do you have?
I have two more.
I have one really good one, and I kind of want to save it for closer to the end. So you want to do one more?
All right. So let's do mine that are probably not that good. So I put another highlight, and we can just like go through this pretty fast. But I thought like 2024 was really the year of frameworks, especially when we're talking inside the web development space. We've seen so many like content and presentations and everything on Next.js, on Nuxt, on Astro, SvelteKit, SolidJS. I'm probably missing like 20 more that have been mentioned, but it seems like the way you build web applications today is through frameworks. And it's been, at least like from where I'm standing, it seems to me like this has been more and more of a standard. If you want to build a web application, you're going to reach for one or the other framework, and they're sort of competing with one another, like which one is faster, which one has larger support, which one can work with with the things you're already using. Vanilla JS for life, who's with me. That's my point. Nobody's with you anymore. I don't know. Maybe there is. I thought like 2024 was really interesting when when it comes to frameworks. It looks like we're not agreeing on this on this one.
No, I think you're right. Right. There's just I totally agree, and at the same time, I also kind of hate it. Right. Like it's like, okay, cool. Everyone's got their super cool, unique framework that suits their specific purpose. That's great, but it's also kind of a pain, right? To some degree, if you're ever trying to share your code with other people or teach people about some nuance about the thing that you're doing with this specific framework, it's great when you're adopting it and your team's adopting it and you're getting a lot of practicality out of it. It's not so great when someone, new to the team who's never used maybe, how can I say, React with that particular framework, right? All of a sudden you're giving them double duty of a thing to learn. And that's just the work of software development. But I would say it does kind of suck sometime. And the vanilla JS for life thing, I mean, I think it is cool when you can use vanilla JS to solve some problems and it's not a headache. But yeah, I think those days are kind of over also, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've just seen a video by Primogen, and he was like reading through a blog that was discussing this this like tunnel vision of web development, that there are so many people in web development that have like no idea that there is some other way of building a web application than through frameworks. Like pretty much like React would be the vanilla approach here, right? Which is crazy, right? Because like we talked about WordPress today, that's a very different kind of development flow that you apply there. So yeah.
Wow. All right, you want to do your next one, or do you want me to do the next one?
All right. Yeah, I'll do my next one, because I think we can go through this pretty quickly, because we have been through this one already. This is one of the things we have already done a live stream about at the time when it happened. But yeah, Playwright. This was the year when Playwright got ahead of Cypress. This was actually, I think, I don't remember when was it that I made this prediction, but I was talking to Joe Colantonio, and I said like, yeah, Playwright is going to get ahead of Cypress, and he was like, whoa, hey, hot take from a Cypress ambassador.
Remember that? Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I think like the telltale signs are there, so I think it's going to happen, and it did. I believe it was in May, June, April, I don't remember. But yeah, we were looking at the weekly NPM downloads, and yeah, Playwright got ahead of Cypress. Cypress growth has sort of flatlined. I don't know, like I haven't looked at the graph for a couple of months now. But yeah, it seems like web dev testing is changing, and Playwright seems to be the big deal nowadays. We'll see how long it will take till we start talking about flakiness in Playwright. I think it's going to that's my prediction for 2025. We're going to have lot more questions on flakiness of Playwright, and then David Burns is going to come again and reshare his blog post like, no, it's not the framework. And we're back to square one, and yeah. Yeah, I also did a poll on LinkedIn about Playwright. I think this was actually at the very beginning of the year, when I wanted to ask the community on the response of what happened with Cypress blocking the deploy Sentinel and sorry Cypress, like what was their solution. And there was I was asking whether they moved to Cypress Cloud, set up their own reporter, or migrated their tests to Playwright. And hopefully the answers were truthful, but it seems like 60% of the people chose to migrate to Playwright. So I think that contributed to Playwright getting ahead as well. It's been a wild thing to follow, but yeah, it's here.
AI definitely has as well, right? So when you think about the use case of Playwright for scraping easily with a lightweight agent, etc., it's hard to get away from that. And I think, hold on, I just looking at this. Hold on, let me just, if I can make this a little better. 1 second. Yeah. So I always love looking at these graphs every now and then when it comes up. But you know, the sharp holiday dip that you see here on the very right side of the screen is what we see every holiday season. There's always a dip for all software tools installed by
test
NVIDIA.
Automation is dead.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's dead because there's just less people downloading things, right? There's less jobs running where they're downloading things, etc. But yeah, you can just see Playwright just continues to skyrocket, take off in the last year. It's been insane. So this is definitely a good call out, just to kind of say, this is was clear.
I think it's not only test automation though, right? As you mentioned, like web scraping and all that stuff. Cypress is like testing only. Playwright has a bit more wider application, as we saw with the Rabbit AI thing. But it seems like this is actually the thing that helps, right? If you build not just a tool but a platform that can be used in various different ways, then people are going to actually adopt it in various different ways. And having a good pluggability again brings me down to that Slack story that I mentioned, right? Integrate with everything. That seems to be that seems to be the name of the game. Like you need to do that in order to be successful, and it seems that it played well for Playwright.
100%. Yeah, I love the pun there at the end as well. Definitely played well for Playwright. Like 100%. I obviously there's no not agreeing with this, right? Like it literally is just what happened before it became super clear. There definitely was like you have to have an opinion sort of thing, but it's just completely clear what's happened this year. And whether that's for testing or automation in general, it's just the state of play now, where Playwright is a automation solution across the board. But yeah.
Yep. So now I'm really hyped up to what you have brought as number one, because you've been like very secretive about this.
Oh, true.
So yeah, show me what you got.
Okay, this is my number one upside or highlight, and it's resiliency or pivoting, right? And I think, you mentioned it earlier, actually a few times on this live stream, like Replay. So for folks that don't know, Replay is a solution where you can take a recording of a browser. That recording isn't just like a Playwright trace where you can step through things, but it's actually a reconstruction of the entire application under test, right? And that's huge, and it's actually super powerful. And if you're trying to debug something and you're, a non-technical user creating this replay and handing it over to a technical user, you've answered all of their questions before you start. And it's powerful. But what they found, as you can see on the left-hand side, was that this wasn't resonating, right? And Philip, hopefully you're okay with me kind of diving into the story a little bit here. Obviously, totally we'll get your take. But what they found was that while this solution was really cool, I think that the solution's awesome, right? They weren't seeing a whole lot of adoption for this thing. And there's a few different reasons for that. And it's not because the solution wasn't cool. And so they decided to pivot in a new direction. They're a small team. They, laid some folks off. That whole thing that we saw happen again with quite a few companies in this last year and a lot more the year before. But what I want to highlight here is that this microcosm, because again, Replay is a small organization, is something that we saw play out with our friends in the community for the whole past 2 years, right? We've seen this time and time again where there's a reorg, and then people like Philip and other engineers that we know and love and testers that we know and love and that we have friendships with have had to be faced with this idea of, oh, now I'm not employed. What am I going to do? What do I do next? And what I've seen in the community is this really great, how can I say it? This really great orientation to being resilient, right? So you can do anything at this point. You can crumble, you can get a job doing something else, you can think that you're out of tech for the rest of your life, etc. But what I've seen people do more often than not is they're doing their own smaller startups. They're starting consultancies. They're reaching out to their network. They're building on the skills that they have, and they're trying to market that in some new way. And they're working day in, day out to do this. And Philip, I have to say, you have really embodied this for me as I've seen it in the past year. And it's been really, it's been inspirational to see it. And at the same time, I also want to say, on the company side, to see that with Replay has also been huge, right? They have gone from, hey, non-technical user, create this replay for us and hand it over to a developer, to, hey, actually, why aren't we just going to let AI do this for us, right? And then create a pull request for us and update all this code for us. So they're using that same technology that they developed that we know is great, and now they're doing something else with it that is worth looking into. And I think that's cool. So on both sides of this coin, right, at least within my smaller community, I can see how both companies and people are resilient. And I think in 2024, that's been the biggest up for me, is seeing that resiliency. Philip, I'd love your take on this.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the kind words. And I actually never looked at it this way, and I realize how to the point you are. Like, yeah, the times have been turbulent, and it seems like the narrative of how do we prepare for these times, how do we actually adjust to what's happening, has actually been ever present. I've seen this from the leaders like Angie Jones and Joe Colantonio that I mentioned, and countless others that have talked about, like, yeah, these layoffs, they are brutal. So this is how you prepare, even if you are not yet laid off, or if you feel like your job is secure at this point, things might change. And yeah, being resilient is really important. I always try to look at it from the day one that I started in tech. I got this amazing opportunity at the Slovak startup called Slido, and I pretty much got accepted with like no prior knowledge. I didn't have like too much to show for, but I got a yes anyway, which was a huge point in my life. And I told myself, like, all right, now, like, I got this opportunity, but if they decided to fire me, I'm back to square one. So I need to look at the equation of like what I am without this company that I currently work for, and see what's left. And like, my personal strategy was always try to make sure that there is something left without the current company that I'm working for, which is not always easy. It's not always the most comfortable path, but it's definitely the one that we should keep thinking about. And yeah, you bringing up resiliency, I think that's a great point. And I'm realizing that I have been a little bit like blind to the fact that this is actually something we have been talking about for the whole year in different kind of contexts. But it's a good advice, and it's a good point to wrap up this live stream on. So thank you very much for bringing that up.
100%, right? And I think, again, like resiliency isn't just like, hey, I've lost my job and now I'm going to do something amazing. I'm going to take this as a launching pad. It is, hey, the framework I've been using is no longer the number one framework, and this is my job. But what do I do next, right? I have to learn this new framework. That's also resiliency, right?
Yeah.
You could continue to just do the same thing and cross your fingers and hope that Cyprus will explode again, but maybe that's not going to happen. Again, like a lot of the things that we've talked about are all about how people and software developers in our community has continually bounced back stronger and better than ever before, because we're resilient people, and resilient people have a community. So yeah. Philip, this has been probably much longer than either of us intended it to be, but I'm
totally fine with this.
It's been super fun. I love this sort of more freewheeling format. Thank you guys for joining the call today and sharing your thoughts. In the future, I'd love to be able to add people to the stage and like do more stuff like this. I think this is really cool. But let's
add the dog to the stage.
Yeah. Let's do a more technical webinar maybe sometime next month, and we can do open web UI and some Olama stuff and how to host it yourself.
I think that's our New Year's resolution, right? To have at least 12 live streams in 2025. So you can hold us accountable, everyone who's watching. I see we have 70 people that have joined, which is beautiful. So yeah, keep sending us messages. Hey, where's the live stream? And we'll make sure that will be back. If not for anyone else, at least for us, because this was fun. I want to do this more, Jonathan.
And I want to say real quick, Murat, you didn't get fired for your course. You got fired because you're awesome. Which means that you'll be hired relatively quickly somewhere else, because you're a genius. And it's been a pleasure to see you in this live stream, and everyone else who offered any thoughts. Ciao. I look forward to working with you on a nuclear reactor for our LLM.
Yeah, Murat is on the job market, so snatch him before anyone else does. He's an awesome guy. And yeah, take your chance. All right.
Awesome. Bye, gang. Hope you guys have a great holiday, and we'll see you literally next year. That is my worst joke I'm going to say. I'm going to catch you later on that one. Bye, gang.
All right. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.